What is going on, everyone? We are super excited to be here tonight. We have got some fun things to talk about, don't we, boys?
Oh, yeah.
Heck yeah. On my side over here, I got Mr. Star Wars Nerd.
Hello there.
Hello. Oh, by the way, guys, we got a notification. Mr. Andrew Garcia, hashtag Andy Classified, is going to be dropping in a few minutes. He just messaged me. So we're going to have 6 people here tonight to talk cryptids. This is going to be fun. Below me, I got my buddy Colin, Mr. Cryptid himself. How you doing, man?
It's going good.
Good. And then we got my artist over here in the corner, Mr. Halfwit. How we doing?
Yes, sir. Feeling good.
Good. It's been a while since you've guested on this show, good sir.
It has indeed been a minute or so.
Although you've been dealing with school and different things, so you kind of been pretty busy there. So
yeah, right. Finally, break is here, and I've got about a week to get as much done as possible before school happens again.
And just leave school. Who needs it?
I do.
Casey says, "Oh no, I see the one that jump scared me. He's back."
Which one, Daisy? That's like all of us except for halfway because he wasn't here last
that
week.
Was specifically Colin pounding that desk.
I know what she's talking about.
Now we need from Colin. All we need him to be is like, "I'm back."
Don't worry, we'll just hit this little button here, so that way you can't see it coming tonight.
Here's Johnny.
Or
man. Colin, I suppose.
Yeah.
Daisy, I may or may not have asked Colin to pound the desk a time or two tonight, just for you, because we love you. First things first, though, as we get these other two guys to jump on here, we wanted to talk about the new Superman trailer that came out. I know many of you have seen it. If you have not, what's up, Battle Packs? BP in the house. Hey, yo. But we wanted to talk about the Superman trailer and give our thoughts and stuff. So I'm going to let you guys go ahead. I'll share mine last. Halfwit had some good thoughts too. Star Wars Nerd, do you want to start us off tonight talking about the Superman trailer and kind of where you come from as far as the DC universe and stuff? So,
okay, so typically I'm more of a Marvel guy, specifically Spider-Man. But like I grew up watching the old Batman movies, George Clooney, Val Kilmer, Michael Keaton, and those were like my favorite Batman movies. I had seen like Superman Returns and stuff like that, but I've never really been a big fan. And I know we're talking about Superman, but I just got to put out there that Matt Reeves's Batman, top tier Batman movie, and absolutely broke me in. And the Penguin show, I still need to finish it, but it is, oh my God. But the Superman trailer, one, I grew up watching the Superdog cartoon show. So seeing him in live action, to me is like seeing Hayden Christensen come back to Star Wars. I was like a kid again, and I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm not too sure how I feel about Nathan Fillion being the Green Lantern dude. He looks a little bit goofy, but I also feel like they should have kept Henry Cavill because he kind of got shafted really, really bad. But it looks good, and I'm looking forward to it. So they got my attention.
Heck yeah. Colin, you want to go next?
So I just watched the trailer, and it has the Superman vibe, like a lot of amp to it. I'm not a big fan of DC movies personally. From my perspective of watching them over the years, it's always been, it's as good as the main character or the main actor, and even then, sometimes the actor can't carry the movie hard enough. For example, like Henry Cavill, I think he's one of the best actors out there. And the Man of Steel movie, it was all right, but like he was carrying it pretty hard. So I don't have high hopes, but they can always surprise me. I'll probably watch it anyway. I normally do. So I'm hoping they surprise me.
So you kind of got a low bar for it, and hopefully you're going to be surprised when you're sitting in theaters and you're like, all right, like, okay.
Yeah, that's my hope.
Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. I think for me, before Halfwit goes, because Halfwit's more of the DC universe comic books, like he gets really into it. And so I'll go next. I'm actually excited. I'll be honest, when I first saw, so I'm more of a Batman fan. I don't usually read a whole lot, if anything, of Superman. And so when I first watched the trailer, I saw the dog and I was like, I don't know. That looks a little weird. Like, I don't know about this. It almost reminded me of, like, my kids watch the Hero Pet movie where it's like Batman's dog, Superman's dog, that. And I'm like, that's what it kind of reminds me of. I'm not sure about this. But I did end up having a conversation with Halfwit, and he did tell me that it is comic book official. And he said there's a lot more to it. So Halfwit, I'll let you dive into all that.
All right. So I have a lot of things to say about this trailer. I'm very, very excited. But I want to start off by bouncing off of something Colin said, in which the movie is only as good as the main actor, right? So I want to just shed a little bit of light on what I've seen and what I've heard from James Gunn specifically, and in some conversations about specifically. I'm going to go off of this is to vouch for David Cornsweet, because I believe in this man now, just from some of the things that I've heard. One of the big things for me is the conversation that him and James Gunn had about the underwear on the outside. I know that is a hot topic among movie watchers, in that whether or not Superman should wear the underwear on the outside, right? Or the boxers, or whatever you want to call them. And David Cornsweet brings up a fantastic point, and he is one of the ones that vouch for the trunks on the outside. And it is for the reason that, Superman is like this all-powerful, incredibly strong, incredibly fast being, shoots lasers out of his eyes. He's an alien. That's terrifying, right? This is Lex Luthor's whole point, is that Superman is an alien. He's all-powerful. He is scary, right? And Superman wears the boxers on the outside because he dresses like a professional wrestler. He wants to look approachable. He wants to kind of make himself look silly. He wants to appeal to children specifically, to make himself look non-threatening. So he dresses like an old, like, professional boxer, and in order to, like, humanize himself almost.
Okay.
And I love that take.
Yeah. As you keep going here, before you keep going here, I do want to welcome in my buddy Corey, Mr. Maury Mavs. How you doing, Corey?
Hey guys, how's it going? Doing good.
Well,
Can
man.
you hear me all right?
Yep, everything's good. Everything's golden.
Sweet.
So we have two people who are really big comic book guys. Besides Halfwit, we got Maury Mavs here. Maury Mavs, I know you're a comic book guy, especially when it comes to DC and Marvel. So I'm really interested, after Halfwit's done here, to hear your thoughts on the Superman trailer, and kind of if you liked it, if you didn't, where you hope they go with it. So Halfwit, continue on, good sir.
All right. So yeah, just to bring Maury up to speed. What I'm talking about is David Cornsweet vouching for the boxers, and why I think that makes him an incredible candidate for Superman. Because the fact that he was able to argue that with Gunn, who was initially anti-boxers, and get not only him, but most of the rest of the cast around on the idea, gives me hope. And just that he is going to be a phenomenal Superman because he understands the character. And to continue with that, the scene that I saw from the trailer that immediately had me, like, I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, so he's like Superman, is when he saves the girl from that explosion with, like, the pipes or whatever it is, and he comes around and he, like, if you look at he, like, shields her head. Like, that's the first thing he does, is he goes to protect her head. And that was just like, oh, okay, so this is, like, actually Superman. That's the first thing he does, is when he saves this girl, he protects her, he covers her head. Like, that was the moment. And there are plenty of things that I will continue to get into, specifically in regards to Guy Gardner and the janky haircut. Because that is something that also gives me hope in a fun way. But I want to give Maury a chance to talk a little bit about this as well. I don't want to take over too much.
Sure.
Go for it, sir.
So I mean, right off the bat, for me, for just to kind of set up who I like and dislike in the comics and stuff, I've never been a huge Superman fan. And that's kind of like you were saying, Halfwit, with him being all powerful and just a huge threat all the time. I'm not a huge fan of like superheroes that just show up and it's game over, because the threat, the stakes are just lost at that point. I think of like the end of Justice League, the Snyder cut, and it's like after Superman is resurrected, he's brought back, and he goes up against Steppenwolf, who's been a terror throughout the whole movie. And I remember the scene where he swings down with his axe at Superman, and it literally just stops right on his shoulder. And he turns and just lightly blows on the axe and just shatters it, and then just annihilates Steppenwolf. And so for me, it's like, I don't like a superhero that shows up and just can do anything. And so starting with that premise, I really liked how the trailer, the opening scene of it, is Superman battered and beaten. And so it kind of shows that there is going to be something that and I'll be honest, I don't know where exactly James Gunn is starting this Superman, if how long he's been Superman, or anything like that. But that was something for me that I really liked. Just he comes out and just opening scene is him beaten already, by who? I have no idea. I've only watched the trailer 2 times, and I haven't done too much speculation at this point. But yeah, overall, I mean, with the landscape of the superhero genre in movies right now, I haven't had a whole lot of hope. But seeing this trailer and it being James Gunn, I'm a big fan of his. He did great with the Guardians. I actually do have some hope for this movie. I think it could be really good.
Sweet. Heck yeah. I do like what you bring up there too, that aspect of Superman where it's like the stakes are high. You know, you're watching all these other heroes, the stakes are high, you know, like they're war torn, they're getting beat, they're, you know, okay, what are they gonna do to overcome? And here comes Superman and game over, done. Like, okay, that's
Right.
like way too OP. Like, come on, man. Like, so
I think that's kind of why I didn't like Superman growing up, is because it's like, well, why didn't he just show up to everything? Like,
right.
that, and I don't like how his weakness is a stupid little green rock from his home planet.
Yeah.
Which
Exactly.
doesn't make any sense to me, but I didn't write the comics, so
Someone tell this man about the other colors of kryptonite and what they do.
I've seen
Oh
it.
boy,
I've seen it. What is it? The pink kryptonite?
Yeah.
We don't talk about the
Boy.
pink kryptonite.
And that was as recent as like 2003 or something, wasn't it?
I think it was
Yeah,
even
it's
more recent than that.
yeah, either 2003 or 2008. I don't really know. It's weird. It's yeah. You can look that one up on your own time.
Yeah, I don't know. That is a good point though, Corey, is that he brings up it starts off with him battered and beaten,
Sure.
and he
Yeah.
needs his dog to literally drag his rear end home. You know what I mean? Like
He's got Superman in the
man.
Yamagata pose.
When I watched the trailer, one of the top comments I saw, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. It said, Batman, tell me, do you bleed? And then it said Superman's response, it depends on who's directing the movies.
Real.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. That's
One of my
awesome.
favorite memes to come out of that is people making fun of the guy that throws the can at Superman and saying that that's that's the Snyder mob. That's pretty good. That's a good one.
That's funny.
Yeah, do you think that he's gonna go and throw his vehicle inside of a tree or telephone pole, whatever it was that he did to the semi truck?
No, I think just from what we've seen, the Superman seems much less, I don't know, affected by that. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But to bounce off of that, the scene right after, we see he's in that building and Guy Gardner shows up. The haircut, right?
Is that
That's
Nathan
something I've
Fillion?
seen. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, the Green Lantern.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've seen a lot is people are very divisive about the haircut. Is it good? Is it bad? A lot of people think it's bad. I personally love it. I think it's perfect because it makes him look like a total tool, and that's the whole point of Guy Gardner. The thing that I love about it is that that's his character, especially earlier on. I think they've moved him out of the haircut more recently, but he's still just this total like jerk, this massive jerk, and I think that the fact that they're willing to give him the haircut that he had originally in the comics, this haircut that has kind of become so iconic to his character, instead of giving him some cool suave haircut, gives me hope that they'll give us an accurate Guy Gardner. Because if they're willing to tie that haircut, that image of him to the character, they're willing to make him more than just, oh, it's Hal Jordan, but they gave him red hair and called him Guy Gardner. It looks like they might actually give us Guy Gardner, which I'm very excited for, to see that they're going to do these characters justice.
Guys, here he is. The man, the myth, the legend. Andy Classified.
Howdy. Sorry I'm late, guys.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're
All good,
fine.
brother. Glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We're just talking about the Superman trailer and kind of our thoughts on it. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I did, yeah. I watched some of that.
Okay. We also want to hear a little bit, maybe an abbreviated version of, you just went and saw War of the Rohirrim.
I did indeed.
And so we want to kind of hear maybe an abbreviated version of how you thought that was. So
no spoilers,
general thoughts, no spoilers. General thoughts, no spoilers.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So let's do that. I think we've talked about the Superman trailer pretty well. Let's talk about a little bit War of the Rohirrim. Give us your general thoughts on it, because here's the deal. Like Colin and I were talking about this earlier today. Is that when it first came out, we were talking to you and we were like, man, we really want to see this. And he was talking to me and he's like, yeah, it's got like a 6.8 on IMDb, and I was like, dude, it's got a 6.6 right now, and it had gone down. So kind of give us your general thoughts and why you think maybe it's kind of got a low score like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, let's see. Without getting into spoilers, first of all, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed the movie. I will definitely purchase it on Blu-ray when it gets out. But how should I say? It is a step above Rings of Power in terms of writing. It's just, it's a lot of it needed more time to develop the story, as in like the writers should have taken more time to write the script. It's a lot of scenes that just don't work together, fit into a film.
Oh.
There's just a lot of stuff that's just like that was a waste of time. That was a useless character. Why? It's pretty much just a big question of why. It's I think it did poorly because how should I say? Lord of the Rings is already a niche topic. And then they decide to, hey, let's do an anime, which is also very niche. So I think it was just too niche for the general audiences to go see. And I think there's just a lot of wasted potential. I think they just needed more time to develop the story. That said, I had a lot of fun. Animation wise, it was very bizarre. Some moments it worked, others it didn't. The characters are all 2D, but the backgrounds are almost exclusively CG backgrounds, except for there's one particular shot where it's definitely 2D, and you're just like, that is just really through. Because Michael Casal and my brother went to go see it with me, and we talked the whole time in the theater. It was just us in the room, which was great. But that there was one spot where the background threw them totally out of the film. It was just like, what is happening here? It was just also was and this happens to a lot of shows nowadays, is they needed more crowds. It's supposed to be like, oh, there's a whole army, but it's really like 2 or 3 people in the shot, and it just, I don't know how to explain it.
Interesting.
Yeah, the story was good. It was okay. It just, again, as we were watching the movie, we're like, they should have done this, and this would have made way more sense. They didn't set up enough stuff. Like it felt like the ending was a lot of payoff to something that we never saw. So it's like, oh, if they had set that up better, this would have been more impactful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it sounds like I'm saving my Cinemark free ticket from their rollover thing on their app to see a different movie.
Perhaps.
I'm not spending money on a ticket to go see that after the description you just gave.
Gotcha. Yeah. Again, for me, I really enjoyed it. I had a blast, but yeah, for some you might not enjoy it. But
it's kind of funny. So you mentioned how it's basically an anime-esque film, and it's funny that you say that because you see as the local shut-in expert who watches too much anime, I can tell you that it happens a lot in anime that like they'll have a written work that's extremely popular. They'll try to condense it into a season or a movie, and it goes terribly because just like what you were describing, it's scattered all over the place. And then suddenly the plot is just like, here it is. And everyone's like, well, what the hell just happened? And like, like, well, that's crap. They skipped all this, so it doesn't make sense.
Right.
It is a curse. It is a curse.
It's true. I actually Reed and Michael Casal and I were talking, and we felt that this film would have done way better if it had been live action. And it's because of the pacing. That's actually the weird thing. The pacing is very slow, but it goes way too quickly with the characters. So it's like, if we had taken more time setting this up with the characters, I think this would have worked. But it's so slowly and poorly paced, unfortunately. And just a lot of stuff where it's like, that was a cool idea, but hey, we need a legend for this thing. So here's this legend. Why is that in there? Because the story needs it. And yeah, this is odd. Very odd. But that said, again, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. They made Oliphants genuinely scary, which was really interesting. But
that's good.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 4 in here now. So we're gonna start heading towards the reason that we're here, ladies and gentlemen. Cryptids. Oh yeah. So let's start talking some cryptids. Here's how we're gonna start.
Favorite.
Anyone who wants to share, who has stories, can share. I'm just gonna kind of make this like whoever wants to talk can talk here. However, I will start this off by saying, Star Wars nerd, you need to tell Andrew about your findings over the last week here, because this is just kind of crazy. So here we go. Mr. Star Wars nerd, let's kick it
All right.
off.
So obviously, of course, everybody watching knows that Mr. Andy down there in the corner has been talking about Bigfoot lately, and I was doing some research on cryptids because I wanted to do cryptids from South Carolina, because that's where I live. And the first thing that popped up was, I think it's I forgot how to pronounce it. I think it's a Oconee or something like that. It's Oconee County. They have an entire festival dedicated to Bigfoot. There's a local legend around there. It's like 4 or 5 hours away from me. There's a local legend that like multiple people have seen Bigfoot sightings or bipedal like ape creature looking things. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I just thought that you know, I didn't think that South Carolina would have had something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
And they actually like in 2022 there's an interview. I sent it to the group chat on Facebook. 3 witnesses were at this beach called Hunting Island State Park, which is like 45 minutes away from where I live. It's actually where I grew up. Back in 2022, they said that they saw like a 7 or 8 foot bipedal like ape creature looking thing just kind of walking across one of the roads as they were leaving. And they went and told the park rangers and all that stuff, and I'm not exactly sure like what the outcome was, but the fact that it was like 2 years ago was kind of insane.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, he thought you
Yeah,
might
I'm not
that.
exactly sure on the whole like origin and legend, like
Gotcha.
from like Oconee or whatever, however it's pronounced. I'm not sure like what the actual origin of it is.
Gotcha. Oh, that's cool. I would love to go see a Bigfoot festival.
I might.
Daisy's
have to go
already
next
out.
time.
We haven't even started, Daisy. Where are you going? Come back. Come back here.
We're talking about Bigfoot. That's the nice one.
This is
Goodness
only the beginning.
gracious,
We
Daisy.
have only just begun.
All right.
Oh,
So,
well, thank you for sharing that.
Yes, sir.
so
Side
who would
note,
like?
isn't
Go
that the area where the original like Bigfoot like video came from? Is that why they have the festival?
Is it really?
I might be
What-
be spitting facts out my butt, but I think that is the
What state was this supposed to be again?
South Carolina.
Don't think so.
I
don't
thought it was
remember.
like in Virginia or something like that.
I think it's Washington State.
Was it
Was it
Washington?
Washington
was
State?
the video ones?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I don't know if it's Spokane, Washington. Spokane, Washington is a famous place for Bigfoot, but I don't know if that's where like the Patterson
Mount
Gym
St.
was
Helens.
taken. Mount St. Helens. Oh, okay, interesting.
Okay.
Yep, it was some British explorer that found footprint tracks or whatever it was. I just looked it up.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Yep. Northern California.
using
Yeah.
Google.
I do also have to apologize. I'm not at my regular studio setup. I'm at my parents' place for the evening. So
Oh, gotcha. I was
All
gonna
good, man.
ask because it didn't look very similar, and I was like, I wonder if he went to his parents.
Yep.
Heck yeah. Well,
that's
tell
why
your
the-
family I said hi. I haven't seen them in a while.
Indeed, yeah, I definitely will. Yeah, you got to come visit again.
I know it's been too long. I need time and money. 2 things I don't have at the moment.
Don't we
Hey,
all?
well, if we
Right.
quit buying Star Wars cards, we might have some money, Gazer.
True. All right. So who would like to start us off tonight? Down our road of cryptids here.
Ooh. I did not come prepared this evening. I didn't think I was going to make it in time. So
I only came prepared with my own opinions.
I don't have too many, but
Where do we want to start, boys? Like I said, I want this to be an open
I started
discussion
last
tonight.
time.
All right.
I was gonna say we had we had two main ones that we were going to talk about tonight, right? Based on what I saw from the group chat. Talking skinwalkers and wendigos, right?
That we're gonna start
Yo.
off with, yeah. And I said and other stuff.
I feel
Sure.
like
Okay.
we don't want to deep dive into. I feel like those two are going to be the big topics. Let's start with
Right.
something a little
That's a
small.
good idea.
I like
Small
that.
one?
I like that, Colin. I like
Yeah.
that.
So I have a map here that I have pulled up. Maybe I can link it to.
Well, if you
boy.
put present down there, like you're
oh,
on
yeah,
your,
yeah, hold up,
and then I
gotta-
can populate it on our screen here for us.
I gotta make sure everything's set up properly.
No, you're
I'm
good.
about to
You're
go
good.
get me a drink real quick. I'm gonna pull up the stream on my phone so I don't miss nothing.
How dare you? How dare you?
Not allowed.
Disgusting.
I think this is the screen. Yes, that is the screen.
All right, here we go.
Oh
But
yeah.
it has a little map and states, and you can hover over and see what they're known for. And so naturally, I wanted to start with, since two of us are in Nebraska.
Yeah.
I looked up. It's called the Alkali Lake Monster. And
Ooh.
now it shouldn't show my other tabs. It doesn't, right?
Nope.
Also known as the Walgren Lake Monster. I don't have stories for it, but I thought it would be fun to just kind of go over and see what people, if anyone's heard
Yeah.
of it. First of all, I don't know if
No.
anyone here has
Uh-uh.
heard of it.
We should do everyone's. We should do everyone's state here and see what their some of their local legends are. After you start with Nebraska.
Yeah, so Nebraska's one and only is the Walgren Lake Monster.
Okay.
And basically
Alkali Lake?
Yeah, the Alkali Lake Monster. It's also, it has two names, Walgren Lake Monster or the Alkali Lake Monster. Sorry.
Okay.
All right, so the original legend of the Walgren Lake Monster claimed to be corroborated by Native American accounts of a beast in a lake that seems basically it was like a mix of an alligator, but it's really large, brown. Apparently it has horns between its eyes and nostril, and it's said to eat livestock. They compared it to basically alligator with horns, looks like a mud puppy or a catfish if that gives a brief description of it. I think I'm trying to find a photo of it, but it's not so much. But has anyone ever heard of that? I just saw it.
No.
I saw it today, and I was like, "What the flock is this?"
Description sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah. So let
Interesting.
me see if I can see an
Outpost
image.
says Hawaiian Menahune.
Hawaiian Menahune.
He lives out in Hawaii there, obviously.
The Menahune. Yeah, it's here. It's listed on the
I
page.
wonder what that is.
So if anyone wants to
Hey,
pull that
Colin,
one up,
I
and
don't
give a brief
appreciate you
reading on it.
scrolling down so far. What I was going to talk about for South,
Uh,
and I don't think anybody saw
Am
it.
I Robody or is he Robody?
I think he's Robody.
I think he's robotic, yeah.
Menahuna. Okay. The Menahuna.
And what other states are we looking at here so I can find them
Ooh.
real quick so people can.
Yeah, we got South Carolina.
Oh
We
man,
got-
this is where I fail my U.S. geography. Hold up.
Number 4.
4.
Right, number 4 or is
Yep.
it number 36? Pretty sure it's
Hopefully it's 4. The Beast. Oh, I'm a butcher that. Baldenboro?
Bladenborg?
Bladenboro?
Bladenboro? Oh, Bladenboro. Bladenboro. But
Beast of Bladenboro. Where else we have?
Wisconsin and Michigan, actually, but Michigan.
yeah.
Wow. Is that 29? Bessie? I thought Bessie was locked. What?
Yep. Bessie. That's actually Steven and I were just talking about Bessie not too long ago. I don't know too much about
Wisconsin's
Bessie.
got like 4 different ones. That kind of scares me. I'm glad I don't live there anymore.
30, 49, and 48. Yeah.
Oh man.
So
Is
you
the-
got Wendigo. Fun.
great.
Yeah, I figured as much because Wisconsin and Minnesota are very Indian names, and Wisconsin is land of gathering waters. Minnesota is land of many waters.
The Territorns. Territorn.
Oh, interesting. Never heard of that one.
48 and the Hodag.
Hodag. Yeah.
Hodag.
Heard of that one.
Yeah.
The Beast
Yeah,
of
but-
Bray Road.
Beast of
Yeah,
Bray Road.
that's my jam. I was really into that one growing up.
So, if you've heard of these, can anyone give like a brief like synopsis of what they are?
Now, Andy, I think you kind of know the Beast of Bray Road a little bit, don't you?
I do, yeah. And I think I mentioned it our last, maybe it was off the air last week. But so the Beast of Bray Road is in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. There's sightings of a large bipedal wolf, a wolf on its hind legs. And it was almost mainly just contained in this one little town out in the countryside. And then slowly the wolfmen, or upright canines, have been expanding across the entire U.S. It's connected to Michigan because Michigan had the Michigan Dogman, which was depending on what version you hear, every 10 to 100 years, according to Native American legend, this
Something
upright,
like that.
yeah, this upright canine would appear and harass people. Yeah. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the Beast of Bray Road, an upright wolf or canine. But apparently it's been spreading throughout the U.S. It's becoming a real, dare I say, an issue for a lot of people. And actually, in a lot of areas where Bigfoot used to be seen, the Sasquatch or Bigfoot, they would suddenly disappear, and then people start reporting seeing the upright canines, and they're far more aggressive than Sasquatch. So they're either enemies or natural predators of the Sasquatch.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's not, unlike the Bigfoot, there's not a lot of reports of like different genders of a male and female. There's, I think, one story from Wisconsin where a guy claimed to have seen a larger wolf with like several smaller ones. So they're assuming that it was a pack. But other than that, I'm not aware of any story of like a gender differentiation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how many of these different monsters can be traced to some kind of wolf. I mean, it immediately makes me think of, and I think this might have been mentioned before, but the unkillable wolf from the Skinwalker Ranch stories.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Why do so many of these stories of these different kinds of cryptids have some sort of connection to this giant dog or these unkillable creatures or whatever? Like it's just interesting.
Yeah.
So I just googled the Hodag, and the origin is like kind of weird.
It's hokey, right?
Yeah, so it's a fearsome critter resembling a large bull-horned carnivore with a row of thick curved spines down its back. The Hodag was said to be born from the ashes of cremated oxen as the incarnation of the accumulation of abusive animals that had suffered at the hands of their master.
That sounds weird.
It's
It
like,
almost feels like a Godzilla sort of thing.
so would that
a
be like
warning of
you're
nuclear
sitting
war.
there and like you kill your cattle and you're like, well, I don't need you harvest, I guess, what you want, and then you're like, I'm just gonna cremate the rest of this, and like you turn off the lights when the ashes are like, starting to simmer down, and then all of a sudden the Hodag just comes out of the ashes. Is that what it's-
Yeah.
Now there's a whole like festival dedicated to the Hodag, correct?
There is.
Oh.
And I think that one was proven to be a hoax, but the town just embraced it and said, "Yeah, we're gonna make this our tourist attraction."
Sure.
Oh, right here. It says there was a hoax in 1896. A shepherd claimed to have captured a Hodag alive. According to the shepherd's reports, he and several bear wrestlers placed chloroform on the end of a long pole, which they worked into the cave of the creature, where it was overcome.
That's funny.
Oh, this is interesting. So if you look at number 30, which is in Wisconsin as well, it's the Territorms, which is supposedly a flying bird man.
Oh.
Teratorns.
That's terrifying. Have you heard of the Owl Man from England?
I have not.
I've heard of something like that.
That sounds like a budget Mothman. That's what that sounds like.
I mean, who knows?
not
They might be
wrong.
connected. They might be connected. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who
I
are you to say? You haven't seen them, have you?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
But I mean, it is
will-
interesting. I mean,
All right, and did I miss any of the states? Do we miss any of the monsters before I stop sharing this? And then we go on to more prepared topics. I just thought this was a little fun thing we could.
Yeah, this is great. I like this
Yeah.
a lot.
This is really cool.
Let's see what I'm
I
kind of
mean-
curious. What is Iowa? Since we're right next, what is Iowa number
let's
37 there?
see, 37 is the Van Meter Visitor.
I'm looking that up.
What does he go to parking meters and
That would be hilarious if you're just sitting there. And
So-
all of a sudden-
The Van Meter Visitor is a legendary winged bat-like creature that was reported to have appeared in Van Meter, Iowa in 1903. It was described as being about 9 feet tall, with large bat wings, a horn on its forehead, and a powerful stench. And it's supposed to be
That's-
able to shoot a blinding light from its horn, and was unaffected by bullets.
Interesting. That's really
I mean, if we
interesting.
wanna
A
get-
lot of cryptids. Oh, go ahead.
no, you first.
Oh, thank you. I was just gonna say a lot of cryptids always come with stories or reports of an overpowering stench.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the same way with that wolf thing on, especially like on Skinwalker Ranch. Everyone
Yeah.
reports like this like almost chemical rotting smell that just like overpowers everything.
Or for
Gotcha.
lots of stories, Bigfoot as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's a theory out there on like the unkillable wolves or dire wolves. Have you heard of a time slip?
I've
So,
heard of it.
that-
I don't know if I could say anything specific though.
Okay. So the theory is that time and space, like when the Earth, kind of like the tectonic plates when they shift, there's like a shift in time and space, and so you can see when this happens a glimpse of the past. And so when you see like a large unkillable wolf, you're seeing almost like a rip in time. And you're seeing something that happened way in the past. That's why you can't kill it. And that would explain why people see Loch Ness Monster or some of these other cryptids, because it's not there anymore. It's something from the past because space and time have kind of been messed up for a split second.
Interesting.
There's also
Very interesting.
there's a really interesting hypothesis. It's like I guess you could call it like a campfire story, but it pretty much is called The Land Never Forgets. And so it pretty much, the land is almost like its own entity. And so when people see Bigfoot, people see dire wolves, it's the land kind of like rewinding itself a little bit, that you can see the past or almost interact with it, even though it's not there. Pretty much the same thing as the time slip.
Interesting.
The only question I have with that is that, how do you explain, again, I'm going to go back to the case of Skinwalker Ranch, like the animals that have just been like torn apart or whatever, or dissected almost, but they're still like alive, even though they've got these cuts and holes in them, right?
Right. Yeah.
All sorts of questions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That we shall discuss as the evening goes on.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So who has the first like researched cryptid they want to bring up?
So I guess I'll start with just kind of it's not necessarily cryptid, but I was listening to a bunch of stories over the last few days, and this one, I feel like it's more like demonic stuff, but it's still really, really creepy, and something I wanted to kind of talk about, and we can kind of get this show on the road here. There was a couple back in, it was 1906, and he was a doctor, and he'd been working, they lived in New York, and they wanted some type of place where they could kind of get away. every so often, him and his wife. And so they ended up going to this place in Connecticut, and they went to this, it's like a forest, and they were looking for different places in Connecticut, and they ended up coming upon this forest with this little like road. So they started going down it, and as they started getting down it, they realized that there was this one section that it looked pretty dark, but as you got into it, like there was a lot of animals singing. The way that they described this is like it almost felt like this forest had all these animals singing. It had like these really cool landscapes. It had all these really cool things. And they're like, so okay, let's build a house here. This seems like a really good place where we could come and we could relax. And so they end up going back to New York, where they currently had lived. I think we're getting Star Wars nerd back here. I think he take that. So he buys 1,000 acres, and he's like, okay, I need to build this. So he tries hiring out different builders. Nobody wants to go. And so, but instead of doing any research, he just chalks it up to, okay, well, maybe it's just not worth their time. It is kind of back in the woods, might not be worth their time or effort. I'll just do this myself. I'll kind of build us a little cabin myself. So, over the course of quite a few couple years, he ends up building this little cabin for him, and gets it done. It's all nice. They have like these little like hot springs kind of things over there that him and his wife like to swim in, and just they're having a good time and stuff. And one of these long weekends that he got to go relax, he ended up getting called back. It was like 1912 or 1913 or something by this time. He ended up getting called back one weekend, and so he hopped on a train, took off, and his wife had been really worried about being by herself. And so he's like, don't worry, I'm just going to take care of this. As soon as I'm done, I'll hop back on a train and I'll come back. And so he takes off, and within 36 hours, he's back on another train headed back towards Connecticut. And he gets back to the train station expecting his wife to be there, because she's been scared the entire time and she's not there. And he's like, well, that's just kind of odd. And he just kind of gets a really weird kind of feeling. And so he ends up just walking towards his little cabin. And the closer he gets, the more of like an eerie feeling he starts to feel. Like something's just weird here. Like this is really not right. And so he gets probably within like 100 yards of his cabin, and he sees the door is like partially open, and he's like, okay, what is going on here? And so he's like, it's not like my wife, she was freaked out as it was, so this isn't cool. So he gets in there, and it's a couple story cabin. He gets in there, and all of a sudden, like it smells weird in there, and he hears this like really loud ringing in his ears, and he's like, what in the world is this? What is going on? And so he kind of focuses. He comes to the realization that sound is actually really insanely high-pitched laughing that's coming from upstairs. And so he ends up going upstairs to his master bedroom, and his wife is in the corner huddled with her fists clenched, and she's got her mouth wide open, like he said it was wider than it should have been naturally, and she's just like high-pitched, just laughing, just sitting in the corner. And come to find out, if he would have done his research, where they built their cabin was actually built on an old town called Dudley, Connecticut. And it was actually founded in the 1740s. And there had been reports of multiple people who had seen these shadowy figures out along the edges of the woods along their town. And every time they would report it, they would be ridiculed, but these guys that kept reporting it just kept losing their minds farther and farther and farther, to the point that they literally had to be like taken care of by their families. And so the legend is that this place is demonically controlled, and that's why like his wife went crazy. All these people from the 1740s had gone crazy, and in 1906 when they went and looked at this property, about 4 or 5 years before that, the last family tried to live there, and it ended up, their whole family ended up dead.
Wow.
And so yeah, the legend of this place is completely demonically controlled, and it is actually illegal to go back there now. Like if you try going back to where this Dudley, Connecticut used to be, you will be arrested and thrown in jail. It's illegal to go back there.
Wow.
That's weird.
It's kind of wild.
Insane. I wonder like why it would be illegal.
Colin's heard
like,
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
you've heard that before? I've never heard of this.
The
Yeah,
Dudley
it's
story.
familiar. I've heard of that
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
Oh, that gives me the creeps.
Yeah.
That's what this place is for. All right, what is who's next?
All right.
I got a story.
Okay.
Now you have to forgive me. I wasn't prepared this evening, but there's I don't know the boy's first name, but there's the story of the Martins case in Yosemite National Park of a little boy that went missing, and it does intersect with a possible Bigfoot sighting. And I want to say this. What's that?
Something about, I've heard a lot of stories about like hairy men and children, and
Yeah.
they'll talk about these men. Yeah.
Right.
Is it something along the lines of that?
It's something along the
Let's
lines.
listen and let's
yeah.
find out.
So I want to say it was, I don't know the kid's name, unfortunately. Someone can look this up. It would be the Martin case. in
Let's call
Yosemite
him
National Park.
Sam.
Sure, Sam. So I believe this happened in the mid to late 70s. There was a father and son that their last names were called the Martins, and they went to Yosemite National Park on a hike. They had been out for the day, and they came across a family that had some kids that was about the little boy's age, and coincidentally, their last names also happened to be Martin. So they said, "Hey, can your boys play with my kids?" And he said, "Sure, yeah." So all the adults sat around while the kids went and played hide and go seek, and Mr. Martin, he says that he watched where all the kids hid. He saw where his son, Sammy, hid right behind a bush. He said, "I had my eyes on him the whole time." And so he sees the little kids come. They say, "I found you, I found you." Go to where Sammy Martin was, and they don't say anything and keep going. And so he's like, "Oh, that's kind of weird. Like, why the kid missed my son?" Well, then they say, "All right, everyone come on out. Like, I found everyone." And Sammy Martin doesn't come out. And right away, Mr. Martin realizes something's not right. So he gets up, he goes to the bush that his son was behind, and Sammy is gone. And so they start asking, like, "Did you see Sammy? Did you see Sammy?" None of the kids knew where Sammy was. And right behind that bush was a trail that went farther down, up or down the mountain. And so Mr. Martin, he starts sprinting. He runs down that trail, calling for Sammy, and Sammy's nowhere to be found. So he freaks out. They call 911. They call the Rangers. The Rangers come. They do a search and rescue. Sammy Martin is never found. Well, farther down the mountain, there was, or rather I should say, the next day, like it was on the news, like there's this boy named Sammy Martin that's missing. Later the next day, they get a call from this family and say, "We might have seen something," that because they showed a picture of the boy on the TV. He says, "We might have seen something farther down the mountain." And this family, I don't know their name, they let's see. They tell the story that they had gone to Yosemite National Park because they wanted to see bears. And they had asked a ranger, where's the best place to see bears? The ranger had said, "Okay, go down this certain part of the mountain and you'll eventually see bears." And so this family went, and they said one day, as they were going, they saw something coming down the mountain. They said it looked like a big something on two legs running down the mountain, dodging in between trees, almost like it was trying to hide, and then it would run and hide, but it's going really fast down the mountain. And it looked like it had something draped over its shoulder. And so they're watching like, what is that? And then all of a sudden they heard a horrible scream, just blood curdling, and it scared them all so bad they left because they were terrified. Like, we don't know what's going on. They got out of there. And then later that night they saw on the news there was a little boy that had been missing. So they called the rangers, said, we think that this is what we saw. And the rangers said, they brushed it off. They said, from where Sammy Martin had gone missing to where these people had been farther down the mountain, no one could have run that far in that amount of time. Well, when the rangers were first getting the call and they were talking amongst themselves about it, there was a reporter that happened to be there, and he overheard everything, and he pulled one of the rangers aside and said, hey, do you and I just want to try to run that distance from point A to point B, see if that's plausible? And the ranger was game. He said, yeah, sure, why not? So him and this reporter, they sprinted. They ran down from where Martin had gone missing to where the family said that they saw this thing. And they were able to make it at full speed in the exact amount of time that it would have taken. So, according to some sources, the Green Berets, and this has been debunked by some people, but some sources say that the Green Berets were actually brought in with weapons for the search for Martin. And people are like, we don't know why they would have brought in people with guns. Supposedly they were there, they never found anything. And Mr. Martin never heard this story about this family's report until years later. Like, just the rangers did not tell him about this. And when he finally found out, he personally believes that Bigfoot took his son. Or you could say, like, maybe it's a wild man, a man that's been out there for a long time. But Mr. Martin personally believes that Bigfoot took his son.
That reminds me of a couple separate stories, actually. Yeah. No, I've heard that one before, and that one's terrifying because they never found him other than that one little sighting, right? Like nothing else. That's the one thing that anybody has ever said about that case. And just gone, like dust in the wind or whatever. Like, it's crazy.
Is this the Oregon case, Martin's? Because there was like a Dennis Martin in Oregon.
Dennis Martin. Yeah, Dennis Martin.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was it in Oregon?
I believe so.
Okay,
the
so
Dennis Martin case.
So it couldn't have been Yosemite, but
well, he could have just been from Oregon, and they could have been out at Yosemite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a different park altogether. I don't know. But...
That's crazy. So, I'll keep going on here. You know, we were talking a little bit at the beginning about the Beast of Bray Road. So this thing actually goes back to, I mean, as early as, what do they say here? The 1930s.
Oh, really?
That the first sightings were reported of the Beast of Bray Road. So Elkhorn, Wisconsin is actually known as like a Christmas town card. It's this little 6,500 residents, just kind of like, you know, when you look at like an old commercial or you see a postcard, it's got like the old kind of like Main Street, like that's Elkhorn, Wisconsin. Like, I've been there. Like, it's kind of a cool little town. Nice. And so, you know, sightings have been there's been a few sightings in the 30s. There's like one or two maybe in the 60s. But the most sightings, like back to back, were actually in the 90s. The first one was by a lady named Lori Andrizzi, and she was driving home after her shift as manager at a local bar and grill. As she made her way down Bray Road in the early morning hours, she noticed a large figure crouched by the roadside. As she continued driving, she looked back and caught a glimpse of the beast with roadkill clenched in its long jaws. Unwavered by the shine from the headlights, the creature stood strong, locked eyes with Andrazi, and then she sped away. Okay, first of all, I'm not locking eyes with anything like that. I'm sorry. Like, that's just,
No.
that is not happening. Like, I see that thing and I'm like, I'm peeling out of there. Like, I'm out. The second one was actually like a year or two later, when there was a high school student by the name of Tom Brichta, and he saw a beast-like figure and ended up colliding with his truck. He had like a old Chevy Blazer, and it like collided with it. And then in 1999, another young woman was driving on Bray Road and claimed that her car was actually it struck something. And then when she inspected the road, she saw a towering wolf-like creature standing on two legs. And as she sped away, the beast jumped onto her car but slid off in the rainfall.
Whoa, that's scary.
That would be creepy. So, Beast of Bray Road, apparently, next time I go to Wisconsin, I gotta go check this out. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, yeah.
I might, not at night, mind you, but I'm gonna go check this out.
Dude, that's the only time it's worth going. Middle of the
True.
night. Come on.
True.
No.
All right,
Make
let's
sure
go on
you're
a little
alone.
adventure. Andy, you're coming with me.
No. Will you pay my for my funeral bills?
Who says there's gonna be funerals?
Yeah, you're not dying. Come on.
I got some
We don't know.
freedom seeds. Just kidding. not that
not
it
the
does
Bible.
anything to those creatures, but hey, you know what? We can pretend that we're safe.
Right.
Sure.
Gives ourselves some false confidence here.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, no, that's
I
terrifying.
actually have a little bit of a missing person story that kind of goes along with what Andy says, and it's weird that you mentioned the Green Beret because that's something that's pretty significant about this story as well. There was, I don't remember the boy's name again, but it was this story. I think it was about some sort of like scout group, and this was in Tennessee, I believe. But I remember the story goes basically this boy was with this group of scouts and they were hiking up this mountain and they were either going up or down, and the boy was kind of lagging behind, and there was one of the scout leaders. Yeah, he was with him, right? And they left for just a few minutes and the boy fell behind and the boy disappears. And so they go back, they're looking for him, and I remember they follow his scent to this river, and they can't find it after that. There's this huge search effort for him afterwards, and spoiler, he's never recovered. But I remember there were a couple things that I thought was really, really weird. Again, the Green Beret were brought in for this search, and they went down this very specific path that they believed that he went down, but no one else had gone down that area. And because there were like some sort of footprints that had gone that way, and there was a shoe that was recovered that initially they were like, yeah, this is his shoe, and then afterwards they're like, no, it was way too big, it couldn't have been his shoe. But then the Green Beret go down this one specific way, no one else is allowed to go down, and then they come back and say that they didn't find him. But no one else goes down this way, and no one else is allowed to go down this search area. Like, it's really, really weird. But the fact that the Green Beret are again involved, and it almost feels like some sort of weird cover-up, or like it's very, very weird circumstantially.
Interesting. Oh, you reminded me of another case, but go ahead.
Yeah, there's a more in-depth explanation about this case and all the weirdness that goes on there. That was done by a guy named Windigoon, and that might be on another channel that he worked with called the Lore Lodge. But I think they worked together to do this video, actually on site, on location, where the boy disappeared. Which was interesting to see them hike up this trail and kind of see the general area where this boy totally just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Interesting.
So as we kind of keep moving on here and we kind of get more towards, we're going to save, skinwalkers and stuff for later, but I do want to set up kind of the premise and kind of where these first these were first sighted, I'm going to leave this to the man who actually only lived an hour away from Originville over here at one point. Which more power to you, man. I don't know how you can live only an hour away and still stay there like and be okay.
To be fair, I didn't find out till I was like in junior high, and I was like, "Oh, that's real." I thought it was a joke. Yeah.
So Colin, go ahead. Just kind of, I want everyone to kind of have a base knowledge of like the origin of it, where it comes from, and then we kind of go into different stories and stuff.
All right. So the main topic tonight is probably going to end up being skinwalkers and wendigos. So skinwalkers are a Navajo legend and or mythical creature, basically. And the origin of it is it is a tribal like medicine man, and they believe in like the magical healing and stuff like that. And basically, the medicine man will stumble into using dark like powers, which gives them the ability to shapeshift and also extends life and all that. And a big part of the belief is how a skinwalker can shape into anything that it has like the hide or skin of, or like this is why in Navajo tribes it's like taboo to have bear, wolf, and like all these dangerous predator hides in like your house or camping area, because if a skinwalker gets into your house and gets a hold of it, they can shapeshift into these dangerous animals, which is why it's considered taboo to have anything that's not like a harmless animal like sheep, because in their eyes, if a skinwalker gets into your house, well, he gets a hold of a sheep pelt, well, he's turning into a sheep. So that's like a lot better than dealing with, say, he gets a bear pelt off your friggin' floor and suddenly you have a 2-ton grizzly that's extremely hostile towards you in your house. As for the setting, Skinwalker Ranch was in Duchesne County, which is in Duchesne, which is in Union County, which is where I went to high school, which is in the Uinta Basin, Union County area. And basically, in the late 90s, a family bought this house, or this ranch, for an insanely low price. And a bunch of weird things happened. I'm not going to go too into detail because we're going to probably talk about it in depth tonight. Yeah. And it got so intense that eventually the government got involved. There was like news studies, like the ranch is still shut down today. You can't get in. It's FBI guarded. And it's like the base premise of Skinwalker Ranch and everything about it.
That's crazy.
Now I'm going to derail us, and I'm going to tell a personal story that's not Skinwalker Ranch.
That's okay.
Related.
I just wanted for everybody who's in here to kind of have like a base of what's going on there. So go for it, Colin.
Just a little teaser.
Yeah, a little teaser for tonight. But all right, so this is a personal story, and this is camping in the Uinta Mountain Range from my teenage years. And all right. So to set up the story, I friggin' hate camping. I'm not a fan of going and spending. And this isn't just because there's stuff out. No, it's not that. I'm not a fan of camping. Anyway, so I'm being forced to go camping because my stepfather at the time was really into camping. But I had football, so thank goodness I was able to do football practice till like 6 or 7 o'clock on a Friday night. We didn't have a game that weekend. And my mom came down from our camping spot, which was high up in the Uintas, and picked me up. And we're going up to the camping spot after we go home, and I get a shower, so I'm not all stinky and everything. And we're going up, and it's a foggy night in the Uinta Mountain Range, already creepy enough. Fog in mountains is never fun, especially when it starts to get dark. And we get up to this campsite, and I feel like I'm being watched. Like I'm not kidding. I feel like there's just eyes on me. Like obviously, not the people we're camping with. Something is out in this fog, and I feel like it's watching me. And I'm sitting there, and I can't escape the feeling. It's getting darker and darker, and all I can see as the sun starts to go down is like darkness, and what's illuminated is foggy. Like the fog is like super thick. Like I'm talking, we had 20 feet visibility max. Like it was so foggy that the camp trailer that my parents stayed in, because they got to be in a camper while us kids had to sleep in tents, has a light on it, and you like the light's a blur over there. Like that's how foggy it is. And I'm sitting at the campfire, and my mom comes out, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm feeling really creeped out at this campsite." And my mom, for backstory, she is definitely a believer in like paranormal, and I'm not a big person on like the whole energy thing, but she is. And she's like, "Yeah, I have a really bad feeling about this campsite, like a really bad feeling." And I have a stepbrother, well, former stepbrother, because they're separated now. His name's Patrick, and my mom got him hooked on this like energy thing, and they believe like you can sense other entities and like communicate with them. I don't know, it's weird. But he's sitting there and he's talking about how he's talking to something out in the fog, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And that just gets me even more creeped out. And like at this point I'm like, I swear something's like out there watching me. I'm like, I'm just gonna go try and sleep the night out. I go to my tent and I lay down in the tent, and it's just the feeling's getting worse and worse, and I'm laying there and get out of the tent, and my stepbrother's sitting there at the campfire still, and he's like doing this like weird, like it's hard to describe, like he's doing like a tap on his shoulder, and it's like a weird rhythm with his like hand movement. And I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he just ignores me. He keeps doing this weird tap thing. And I'm like, "Dude, stop messing with me. What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm having a conversation." And at that point, I go up to my camper, my mom and stepdad's camper, and I knock on the door, and I'm like, "I can't sleep. I have this really bad feeling about this campsite." I'm like, "Can we leave?" And my mom's like, "I also have a really bad feeling about this campsite." And I convince her, and my stepdad's, throwing a big hissy fit, like, "This is supposed to be my camping weekend," and all that. And I convinced my mother to drive off the mountain. Oh, hello, hold up. Camera? Hello? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. And we start driving down the mountain, and the whole time we're going down the mountain, I feel like we're being followed. And we get home, and creepy feelings starting to fade because I'm in my house, comfortable home, and I go to sleep, and I have probably the only dream that I can remember in detail to this day. Like, because you know how people, when they sleep, you dream and your details start to fade instantly when you wake up. I can remember this one in detail. And so I fell asleep, and the dream goes as follows. So I grew up, my family is LDS, or Mormon, if you know. But the thing is, all their churches are uniform, the same. And in this dream, for whatever reason, me and my stepbrother are in an LDS church, and it's like pitch black in the church, and it's raining and a lightning storm outside. And he's like, "Hey, let's play like hide and seek." And I'm like, "All right." I don't know why that was the theme of the dream, but anyway, he goes off and hides, and I'm like, I'm gonna find him. And I'm walking in this pitch black church, and there's just flashes of light from the storm outside. And I walk into like the one of the main entrances, like the halls, and they have like these big glass doors. And all I see sitting in the corner is a large humanoid, like dog creature. And I freeze up in terror because I don't know what it is. and I start to back away slowly. And the dream ends with whatever this is eventually, like, it like charges at me, and I'm assuming it kills me, because I just remember waking up in a cold sweat, terrified out of my mind, pulse through the roof. And the reason I bring this up is because there's a lot of cases where people will talk about where they're messed with by like either like a skinwalker or something, and it's not just like a, how do I put this, like a physical, like they're there in person. There are people who talk about how it torments their dreams, and they'll have these bizarre dreams of these humanoid animalistic creatures that'll haunt their dreams. And that's like the creepiest thing I can think of that from personal experience that's happened to me.
I'll go next, because I actually have a personal one. As you were talking about it, it kind of reminded me, and I've never put two and two together until you started talking about some of this, and it's kind of giving me goosebumps as I'm like thinking about it, putting two and two together. So Andy will know who I'm talking about, but my best friend growing up was Micah, and Micah and I, since the time we were like 2 or 3 years old, like we just been buddies. And I can remember I was, I want to say I was freshman or sophomore. He's a year and a half ahead of me, and he had kind of made a mess of his life for a little bit, and I still really close to him. I mean, that's what buddies do, no matter what happens in life, right? Like you stay close and you try to help him out. And so I can remember my buddy, he had been going through some really, really hard times, and after a while started very slowly kind of turning his life around. And I remember one night, it was in the middle of summer, and there's this road in my hometown. It's about the size, it's about 30,000 people, with the two towns that are kind of like Twin City. They share a river together, and there's a road called Kearney Boulevard, and so it's got a big median, and the one side you go one way and the other side you go the other, and it ends down in like not the greatest part of town. It's called Minneconne, and it's kind of some of it's not that great part of a town. It's kind of run down. It's got some houses on the very end of Kearney Boulevard that are vacant houses. They've been vacant for quite a long time, kind of sitting on their own. Well, it was a summer night, and it was like 85, 90 degrees still, and it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and I can remember this vividly. So it's not cold by any stretch of the imagination. And my buddy and I, we were like, you know what? Like, we were sitting there chatting inside the house, and we were like, let's go for a walk. Like, let's just chat. Like, we just need to chat together. And so we take off from his house, and we're chatting, we're walking, we're having a good time. Like, we're, just kind of, as good friends do, brothers do, like, you're kind of just sharing your world with that guy, and just kind of letting him know what's going on, and joking around a little bit. And we're walking, we're probably 20-25 minutes into this walk, and we're on Kearney Boulevard, and we're close to the end. We're probably maybe quarter mile to the end, where it dead ends into another road that takes you right into Minneconne. And there's a white vacant house that's in between us and the end of the road, and it had been vacant for quite a long time. Now, I'm not sure if it's still standing. I haven't been up there to see it in almost 10 years now. So but there was an old white vacant house. Again, it's 85, 90 degrees, and it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. It was a really warm night. And my buddy and I are walking, we're talking, we're, kind of talking about life, and we get up to that house and there's a front porch on it. Man, I'm just picturing this and I'm already getting goosebumps. There's a front porch on it, and we get in front of it, And all of a sudden, in the middle of a very heavy conversations you don't forget about, we both stopped at the same time. Like, we weren't looking at each other. We both just stopped dead in our tracks. And it felt like we walked into a freezer. I mean, like, it was so freaking cold all of a sudden. And like our hair started standing on our bodies, and we were just like, what is going on? And we like looked at each other like, this is weird. And at the same time, we looked up onto this vacant house on this porch, and it wasn't right next to the sidewalk. It was set back a little bit. And there's we both saw the same thing, because we both described it later, like with the same description. There was a humanoid figure up on this porch, kind of in the dark, and it had this weird crown on its head. And we're sitting there looking at this thing going, what the heck is that? And its whole head does a complete 360 with the crown on it and stops. What? And it's like, all of a sudden we saw these like yellow eyes, and we were like, we are out of here now. Like, we are gone. And so we ended up running back to his house. That was the creepiest thing I have ever been a part of in my entire life. And to this day, we still can't remember, on a heavy conversation where you're trying to help your brother out in life, what in the world we were talking about. And it was crazy, because after we got back to his house, we were like, did you see that, man? Like, did you feel that? Like, it got cold, man. And then we were like, yeah, like, all of a sudden there's this humanoid figure. I was like, did it have a crown on his head? He's like, yeah, dude. Like, we both saw the same exact thing. It was so creepy. It was unreal. And it was just an experience I will never forget, for sure. I need to go.
You've actually told me that story before.
Have I told you that one?
Yeah, you've told me that story before. I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah, you've told me that one too.
I did tell you. I know I told Corey. I didn't think I told Andy.
No, I think I know what house you're talking about, though, because I now live on Kearney Boulevard, and
that's right.
I think I might know what. No, Gazer. I think
Gazer,
I know what house.
Swallowed by the void. Truly the most unfortunate.
Wow. Oh,
I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just can't see you. You've been swallowed by the logo.
iPad died.
Ah, that would be
right now. I will continue on with voice. Yep, that's exactly what happened. My iPad died.
So these stories of these dark, shadowy men actually remind me of some stories that I've heard. Nothing personal, but it draws off of a couple things that I've heard from a couple of my friends, and some things that you can actually get deeper into, just with some paralysis stuff. Sleep paralysis demons, all the stuff that you hear of these shadowy figures that will stand in the corner of your room, and you can't move, you can't do anything, and then you'll wake up and realize, oh, that was a dream. But it's so vivid, and it reminds me of this specific case that I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this, but the Hat Man.
The name sounds familiar.
The Hat Man.
So it's this character that, from what I've heard, it's sort of similar to these like sleep paralysis demons, and the one case that I can remember in any sort of detail, again, not from personal experience, but there was, and it's weird how it's been linked to like some drug usage as well, like maybe it's LSD or something. But I remember hearing some stuff about, and I think this was Aaron Rodgers, I believe. He went on some cruise into or some sort of like something in I think maybe the Amazon, where he had gone on some sort of like trip or whatever, and he had this experience with this Hat Man figure that I have heard several stories from several different people, indirectly again, but just about this character, this Hat Man. And then Aaron Rodgers, he goes on this vacation or whatever, and he has this experience again with these drugs, and then he sees his character, and he says, I remember there was this period where he got really annoying to a lot of his teammates because he would not stay in the locker room alone because he could feel the presence of this character again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I actually found when I was looking at, just like a general list researching for tonight's topics, I saw that. So I always thought that like the boogeyman was just a term like that we use, but it turns out like the boogeyman is actually considered a cryptid because it represents basically every sleep paralysis demon and like other things that like it's in your room and it's to make you like the story told to make kids behave. And I've always like, what's your guys' opinions on that? Like, do you think it's like something like a sleep paralysis demon is just the boogeyman, or do you think it's?
I think the
I always-
boogeyman. First,
Go ahead. You got
how
it.
am I sounding? Because Gazer said I sounded glitchy and robotic earlier.
You're sounding good.
You're
sound
sounding better
great
for the
right
moment.
You're
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. I think the boogeyman is just a man made out of boogers.
Always thought that as a kid. Yes.
Yeah, the one you really got to be afraid of is Oogie Boogie, or whatever his name is, from Nightmare Before Halloween or Before Christmas or whatever.
Yeah.
My understanding of the. Oh, now I can't say the name right. The
Boogeyman.
What is it called? Boogeyman. I was gonna say Booger Man. I was like, that's not the right way. Thank you so much.
So close. And yet so far.
My understanding of the boogeyman was always that it was just someone's specific term for a Sasquatch. Like, oh, there's the boogeyman out there, and it became a local legend until eventually everyone lost meaning. I've never heard of it as the sleep paralysis demon though.
Well, sorry, I'm making a comparison there because the boogeyman is. I was taught as a kid that the boogeyman hides under your bed, and if you misbehave, he'll like reach up and grab you type situation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm still always afraid to have my hand or my foot over the bed just because you're afraid of what if something does
Yeah,
grab it.
the sleep paralysis demon under your bed, aka the boogeyman.
He is afraid of the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
The
you just
hand over
put
the
your
bed story that
mattress
always scared
straight
me
on
the
the
most.
floor, so there's no
Oh,
under the
man.
bed.
He's cutting out the middle, man.
Yeah.
Now we know how Maury Mob sleeps.
Has anyone here ever had because I know it's common that people have like the sleep paralysis experience. I personally have never had like sleep
Never.
paralysis.
I
But I know a couple people who have.
Oh, Star Wars nerd has. All right, Star Wars nerd, tell us.
All right. All right. So let's get the time frame right. I was in 10th grade, had just gone up to Philadelphia to go skate because I used to skateboard and make skateboard videos. Me and my buddy, we convinced his dad to take us up to Love Park right before they like shut it down and remodeled it and everything. And we're coming back. It was like a quick go up there, turn around after like 8 hours of being like literally on the road for like 26 hours or something like that. Just straight turnaround trip. And we get back to his house and I'm sleeping. Next thing I know, eyes bust wide open. Can't move, can't talk, can't do anything really, except like maybe like turn my head to the side just a little bit to kind of get an idea of my surroundings. Well, the room I was sleeping in, the way it was set up is like, all right, so the bed's in like this one corner like this, the door's over here, and then there's a hallway to the side that leads to a bathroom. All of a sudden, I'm looking to my left and I just see the door just creak open. Next thing I know, I just see this giant shadowy hand, finger, stick looking thing just wrap its fingers around the wall, and they extend it to the freaking bedroom door. Next thing I know, all I see is this like weird disfigured smile on a face, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no nothing, and it gets closer and closer, and then I finally am able to like scream and like move, and next thing I know, I bashed my head on the wall, my elbow on the wall, and then fell out the bed. and it was not fun. I couldn't move throughout the entire time.
Yeah, that tracks. Yeah, that's exactly what the sort of stories you hear.
When I finally was able to like bust free, it felt like I shattered every bone in my body.
Ugh.
Mm.
Oh man.
You know,
Crazy.
the way you described that, that's something that I've kind of thought about. I've heard, again, like I said, I've heard a lot of stories about this. And I did a piece of art that is very, very similar to exactly what you described. I did this probably close to a year ago, back when I was, well, not back when, I'm still going there, going to Northwestern, or not Northwestern, Metro. And I can send this to Gazer here. But I have done a piece of art, and I think I've shown you, Gazer, this particular piece. But just based off of what you said, I did something just eerily similar. Just based off of all the things I've heard about this, yeah.
What's crazy is I still can like remember everything about it exactly. Like it literally looked like somebody took it out of a sketch. Like it had like the pencil line, like the kind of like the old school like gray cloud looking like raining on somebody type sketch.
Wow.
It looked like that. Like that's
Crazy.
like, but it still looked like a human. Obviously, that's just kind of like the texture of its skin. I don't know. It was black and white, kind of staticky, like I just like a sketch, and it wasn't fun.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Terrible. I'll go next if possible. I've got a personal story with something like that. Now, I've never had sleep paralysis, or anything like that. I don't think we have a history of that in my family. But when I was in Scotland for my DTS missionary training school, let's see, we were having a part. So like we were staying in an old castle, not medieval castle. It was like a castle that was built in the 1800s over on a hill by the sea. It was a beautiful place. But I shared a room with 3 other guys, and we were having a party upstairs. I forgot what we were celebrating, a birthday or something like that. I can't recall. I was super tired, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to bed early. So I went down the stairs to my room, got in bed, and we had like a very small, narrow room. It was triangular shaped, like a piece of pie. And I looked to my left, and in the corner at the very like where the walls meet to make that triangular point, I couldn't see, there was nothing there, but I could see movement. Like my eye was registering something pacing back and forth in the corner, but there was nothing there. Like I couldn't see it. So I was like I'm staring at this, like, what is happening? What am I seeing? Nothing there, just my eyes registering movement. That's the only way I can describe it. So of course I'm a Christian, so I'm like, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus. I'm not afraid of you, and I just go right to bed. And didn't think about it, had no fears. The next morning I wake up and my roommate, he says, "Hey, did anyone notice anything weird last night?" And we're like, I didn't think about it at first. I was like, no, what's going on? And he said, I came into the room last night to go to bed, and once I got in bed, I looked in the corner and I couldn't see anything there, but I could sense something was pacing back and forth. And I was like, wait a second, I gotta tell you about what I saw the same thing last night. And so we shared. It was very bizarre. Only 2 of us saw it, and again, never saw a physical thing. Nothing was there, but both of us sensed something pacing back and forth in the corner. Yeah. And of course, as a Christian, I'm like, yeah, all these stories it's demonic, it's demons, but
yeah, that's where I land on a lot of these things too, being a Christian as well. And yeah, I have a personal one too, if I could go real quick on that.
Go for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the only time I've ever had like a recurring nightmare was probably 3 4 years ago, probably more like 4 years ago at this point. And I've been a believer for 5-6 years now, so it was pretty early in my walk. And I hear a lot of stories from people, like when you first become a believer, it's like the attacks come heavy then. And it was the only time I've ever had a reoccurring nightmare. And it's interesting that you guys have brought up like these shadow men and these shadow figures, because that's exactly like how my dream would go. Is basically I'm just laying in my bed, like on my side. It's how I sleep a lot of times. And within my dream, it was like I couldn't move at all. And I could sense that there was like a presence in my room, but I couldn't look around, couldn't see anything. It was pitch dark in the room as well, and I could feel something like get into my bed with me. And you could feel like, you know, when heavy weight is being put on a mattress, you can tell, like, and it would approach me always from behind, and it would begin to like, and this is gonna sound weird, but it would begin to basically spoon me from behind. And as this was happening, it was like, I don't know if you guys have ever like tried yelling in your dream, and it's like it's just nothing comes out, like it's just a mumble. And I remember just kind of like like can't get anything out. And as this thing is like coming up behind me and beginning to wrap its arms around me, it would cover my mouth. Whoa. And then eventually I would wake up in just that cold sweat that you get. And in this dream, this had happened probably 3, maybe 4 times in about a 6-month period, I would say. It's not like it was, you know, not every night or anything, but it was always the exact same, just this shadowy figure that creeps into the room and comes up behind me, and just I could never move, and it would do the same thing with me every single time. And I remember the final time that it happened, it was like I was finally able to fight back in a way. And when I broke through the kind of within my dream, the paralysis that I would feel, you know how in dreams, like you'll be, let's say you're in your house and you walk through your room door, and then all of a sudden you're in a totally different area. Yeah. Like the way that dreams work, it's just kind of goofy in that way. You'll just kind of teleport around sometimes. When I had finally kind of broken free of this like paralysis of this thing, I was in my hometown park. I grew up in a town of 200 people. It's just a real small park, and I could finally lay eyes on this creature, and the way that my brain had registered it, imagine an amalgamation between you know how Davy Jones looked in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies?
Mhm.
Imagine him mixed with the Night King from Game of Thrones. So kind of this tentacle monster, but also with like kind of these spikes coming out of its head, and it was down at the park, and it was middle of the night, and for some reason there was like one light in the middle of the park, and I knew that I had to get like to this light, and so I'm running over there, and this thing is currently, there's several other people at the park, and this thing is going around and kind of grabbing them by the head, and it's like turning them into kind of these like demon slaves, basically, turning people into these creatures. And I knew that this thing would be coming for me, and so I'm running for this light, and I remember it turning everyone else in the park, and it finally it comes toward me, and at this point, it's one of the very few times that I've had a lucid dream where I knew I was dreaming at this point, and this thing makes eye contact with me, and I remember thinking, okay, at this point, I know that I'm dreaming, and I'm gonna put a stop to this thing.
Mhm.
And I remember being able to almost muster up these like telekinetic powers, and I lifted this thing up in my dream, and I like tore it into pieces. And in my head, I was like, okay, this thing has been defeated. And suddenly it brings itself back together into form. And at this point, I'm absolutely terrified, because I think to myself, I know I'm dreaming. I should have control of this dream, and I don't. And this thing approaches me more and more, and it finally, just like it was doing to everyone else, it grabs me by the head, and I could almost, it's a dream, so you don't really feel, but almost feel it digging like into my head. And I remember at this point, just I grabbed him back the way that he had me, and this was after I had tore him apart, and he brings himself back together, and he says to me, "You will never defeat me." And I grab him back the way that he had me, and I remember just very specifically saying, "You'll never defeat Jesus Christ." And this thing blew up into nothingness, and I woke up at that exact moment, and it's by far the most intense sequence of dreams I've ever had. The only time I've had reoccurring nightmares, and yeah, it all came to a head that night in the park, and yeah, seemingly invoking the name of Christ, this thing blew up before me, and I never had this dream ever again. It's like it was the end of it.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's insane.
It reminds
was
me of
quite
that
the
moment.
Incredible
experience.
story.
What were you gonna say, Maury
Reminds
Moss?
me of,
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, it was quite the experience.
Yeah.
I can. Reminds me of that scene from Thor Ragnarok where Hela goes, "You can't defeat me," and Thor goes, "I know, I can't, but he can." And then Surtur comes out through the castle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great comparison.
that's crazy.
Right.
Man.
So cool.
Well,
I've. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've heard that within, I think the organization is MUFON. You know, those people that study like UFO sightings and reports and all that. There's a category within people that are abducted by aliens. They have a specific category for people that are abducted by aliens, and they will use the name of Jesus. And for whatever reason, they know that these aliens are afraid of someone named Jesus, and they will flee. When you, like, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you, and they'll flee. Which is really
Wow.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So as
very.
Christians, we're like, yeah, that makes total sense. But to these other people, they're like, they're afraid of someone named Jesus. This is weird. But
Right.
Let's keep moving on here. We're an hour and 45 in, guys.
Whoa.
Yeah. Let's start getting into the real creepy stuff here.
I actually need to skedaddle, so I won't be here for that. But it's been nice hanging out, guys.
Sounds good. Have a good night, Andy.
Farewell, soldier.
Thanks. You
See
too.
ya.
Have a good one, man.
Very well. See y'all. Bye.
All right. So, Star Wars nerd, I think you said you have a personal story and something else that you were wanting to share.
Yeah. First of all, is my mic still sounding okay?
You sound good. You sound great,
Okay.
dude. So,
I think it was StreamYards earlier because I had to like reboot my computer and everything. So
gotcha. So let's go down the road. Let's go down the road. We're pretty far in. Let's go down the road here of some skinwalkers and some wendigos. So, Mr. Star Wars nerd, take her away.
mine doesn't have to do with skinwalkers or wendigos, but
That's fine.
I mean, I get. I'm not really sure. The personal one, I'll go ahead and start with that one. So this was literally like 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you guys remember, I actually kind of typed it in the short version into one of the NerdsGalore live stream chats. Well, I work like 10 minutes away from my house, and I'll come home on my break and all that. Well, I come home, do my thing, pet my dog, and I'm heading back to work. And where I live, it's just a bunch of woods with a couple houses placed in between. Well, I'm going, and I see like the kind of like glare from eyes that you see like from deer and stuff like that. So I start slowing down because I'm going like 50. I'm like, let me go ahead just in case this thing decides to run out in front of me. I'll be able to, stop. I start slowing down. Well, I get closer and I look, and it's not a deer at all. The best way I can describe it is he looked like, I don't know if my phone's going to show, it looked like Alan from Smiling Friends, if anybody's seen it.
Looks like Alan?
It looked like Alan from freaking just the shape. It wasn't like, it didn't look like that. Like all I saw was the shape of it and these glowing like red and yellow eyes. And I mean, like, it's running up to the road. It sees me, and classic horror movie fashion, I go to take a picture or a video. This thing literally gets down on all fours, turns around, and busts, like just starts beelining it for like a sales at Macy's or something. And I was scared.
I would have been a little scared.
Yeah, considering it was like 2:30 in the morning.
Ooh, it's not creepy at all.
No thanks. No, thank you.
And
No, thank
I
you.
guess the second one I'll tell really quickly before we get into the good juicy stuff. Does anybody remember that old show on Animal Planet, Lost Tapes?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Like they literally talked about like cryptids and stuff, you know, Jersey
Yeah,
Devil,
yeah.
Lizard Man, and all that good stuff. Well, I remember watching it growing up and doing research for this live stream. I came to find out that apparently, I don't know if it's like the original origin or if it's just the South Carolina version or legend of it. But apparently Lizard Man, or what was it called? It's the Scape or Swamp Lizard Man. It's literally like less than 2 hours away from me, so I'm thinking about going up there and maybe seeing if I can find something.
Dang.
But the story for that one goes in 1988. This dude, Christopher Davis, was driving home from work. It was 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and he gets a flat tire all of a sudden. So he gets out, changes it. Obviously, he lowers the car. He's getting the jack out from under the car. Well, all of a sudden, he starts hearing this like rapid thumping coming up behind him. Next thing you know, he turns around and he's just greeted by this 7-8 foot tall lizard dinosaur looking thing. He gets in his car. Luckily, he was smart enough. He didn't turn his car off. So all he had to do was just hop in and get going. He starts going. Well, next thing he knows, it's like basically kind of, oh, well, no, nobody really said, it's like he basically just like hit an invisible tree or something, like got slammed into the side of his car. He starts swerving. All of a sudden, you know, he feels like something got off of his car. So he speeds home, checks in the morning, and all he's got is these giant deep gashes, giant scrape marks. Like it's like 3 claws just scraping down the side, the top of his roof, his hood, all that. Unfortunately, I wanted to look up and see if maybe I could get that dude like on Tales from Peridia to, you know, do a little interview about it. But unfortunately, he was shot and killed inside of his home during a drug deal gone bad. So can't necessarily get any information out of him.
Dang.
But apparently after he like came forward about it, there's been multiple instances of police like documenting record they have evidence of like the claw marks and all the damage to vehicles. I think they said like they had like 10 or 12 cases of it. Nobody's looked into it. Nobody's done anything about it. And I just think that's pretty crazy.
That's wild.
Velociraptor? Dinosaur?
No, there
can't imagine.
You
Can't imagine changing your tire. You hear something. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. You're like, I'm about to die. Let's see who's gonna kill me. And then you turn around and you're like, holy crap! Like,
I forget what there used to be an old dinosaur. The name literally, I think it's called like, dang, I'll send a video later. But the name literally translated to the Carolina Butcher. And the people were like wondering if maybe that thing is still around, because it literally matches the description. It looks like a lizard / an alligator. It has 2 legs, arms with 3 claws. So it's like, I don't know. This is why I wish I had a time machine so I could go back to specific events in history and see if it actually happened.
yeah. Dang. All right, Colin, do you have some juicy skinwalkers or anything?
All right. So before we do Skywalkers, I want to list off like 3 honorable mentions that we didn't get to discuss tonight. So we've talked about one, Jersey Devil origin story. So the Jersey Devil took place. Let me really pull it up real quick. I just thought the origin story of the Jersey Devil was friggin' hilarious, to be honest.
Oh, before you get into it, I see here Halfwit sent a message. It's called the Carnifex, and I guess that name literally translates to Carolina Butcher. So you may continue.
Right. So the Jersey Devil, the legend goes that there was a woman by the last name of Leeds, and they called her Mother Leeds. And she had 12 kids, and I guess she was about to have her 13th, and she was like, oh, heck, I don't want a 13th kid. This is a chore. So she cursed the child to be a devil, and, like, I guess gave birth to a devil. Yeah.
Bro, this is the first time I'm hearing this origin story. What is going on?
And apparently the
Yeah,
child...
that's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, the child literally came out with wings, like a goat head, like a human torso, and like hooves, and flew off into the sunset. And that's the origin story of the Jersey Devil.
That's really
Flew off into the sunset is the most happiest ending I think I could ever hear for a monster origin story.
All right, then there's Mothman. Mothman was another honorable mention.
Oh yes, Mothman.
Mothman has a bunch of weird facts with him. Like apparently he's clocked at going 100 miles an hour in flight. I don't know who clocked it. But that's
How they clocked it.
How they clocked it. It was
Cop sitting on the side of the road, speedometer up in the air, like, huh.
What's that thing flying at 100 miles per hour right now? But anyway, it was
That's
also
a problem
linked,
for another man.
Mothman was also linked to the largest bridge collapse in U.S. history, where 46 civilians died to this bridge collapsing. It was ruled like faulty equipment, but there were apparently at the same time as the accident, sightings of the Mothman around the bridge. So people are theorizing that he vandalized the bridge to break it somehow.
I've heard a couple different
did, like,
theories on that.
everybody join up on the bridge and it collapsed, or how?
Well, I mean, it was a commonly driven across bridge.
Okay.
I can look it up, the name of the bridge, if we.
It's all good. These are just honorable mentions. So,
but anyway, and then he passed away, or they passed away, and he hasn't really been mentioned since like the 70s anyway, so he's kind of irrelevant. He did have a meme resurfacing like 5 years ago, but I don't think there's been like big sightings or anything.
He stole my
Mothman's
catalytic converter.
Yeah, exactly.
That's definitely something we should talk in deeper detail, though, in another episode of the Cryptids one, because there's a lot of weird stuff that goes along with that one.
Yeah. And I think that was the last of my honorable mentions. If anyone else has any they want to just give a brief description of. No?
I don't think so. Not off the top of my head. I think those are the main three probably that we kind of missed.
Nailed the good ones.
All right, so then
We should definitely go into them, though.
All right, so now we go to the Skinwalkers and the ranch. So as I stated earlier, Skinwalker Ranch was bought in the 90s by I believe it was the Sherman family, and they bought the land for extremely cheap, and like they're super excited to start ranching. The family moved into the ranch, and instantly, like in the first 18 days, they had their first bizarre thing. And it was the father of the family, Mr. Sherman himself. He liked to walk his dogs at night, and he's walking along a trail on he had like 850 acres, if I remember correctly, is the ranch. And he's walking along a trail on his ranch, and he encounters a large, like 3 times larger than a normal wolf. And it has like these super red, like glowy eyes, because flashlight and how animal eyes reflect off the light anyway. And he puts in the story, it tells that he puts 3 to 5 rounds into the animal, and the animal doesn't even budge, and it just kind of scurries off after getting shot a couple times. And that was like the first big event that happened to this family. They then start to have events happen around their house, and they would constantly, like, they'd be in their house, they'd have like pounding on their doors, tapping on their windows, and they couldn't explain what was causing it. And they'd have livestock for like one of the biggest things that happened was one of their calves that they were raising. They walked away for 45 minutes to let it graze or not graze, relax in this field for a sec on its own while they went and did something. And they came back, and the cavity of the chest of the calf was completely gutted out. And normally, all right, the cavity of this calf is suddenly missing. That's going to be a bloody mess. There was not an ounce of blood on the ground around the body. Not a single drop. It was almost like it was expertly harvested from the calf. And they also had cattle just disappear, like in the winter. They'd have trails and they're trying to find the livestock to lock them up for the night. And they'd follow the trail out, and the trail would just suddenly end, and the livestock's nowhere to be seen. The biggest event with this that happened ended with they found a cattle like heavily mutilated hanging from a tree. Like its body and limbs were scattered amongst this tree, and like the tree limbs were damaged heavily, and they have no idea like how it got up there. And after all this happens, like a story is put out in the newspaper, I think it's the Salt Lake Tribune was actually the first like big newspaper to cover it, or bigger newspaper to cover it. And shortly after the Salt Lake Tribune covers it, the government gets involved, and a private company buys the ranch from the Shermans for, I think it was $200,000 in the 90s. It was like late 90s. Like I think it was 96 to be specific. And their goal with buying this ranch, because all this weird paranormal stuff is happening, is to get official proof that this is actually stuff that happens. And the government gets involved in aiding the research. And there's a lot of controversy around this research period because they don't officially release documents of what's been found. So like according to like what we know from like the government, nothing's found. But there have been books written by people who were on the research teams for the ranch. And for example, one of the stories was one of the guys was they have like a tower built up on a hill on the ranch, and he's sitting in the tower at night, and he's looking at a tree about 50 yards away from him, and suddenly this larger than any bird in the Utah demographic lands on a branch, and it has these beady yellow eyes, and it locks stare with him, and it makes eye contact with this creature for a good 10-20 minutes, and then the creature jumps down from the tree and just shuffles away. And in the morning they go to the tree and they find like large bird talons that are sunk into the earth, making it seem like whatever this creature was had pretty hefty weight around it. And this is just a couple of the stories that the scientists have on this. But the issue is that we don't have the official research documents. We only have the researchers' stories that they release in their own personal books. So there's no actual proof around it yet, which is why there's such a controversy around the Skinwalker Ranch. Because if you ask officially, there's no evidence or nothing weird happened. It was just a dull research that amounted to nothing. But then if you go back and look at the researchers' stories, they'll all talk about the missing cattle, bizarre lights appearing in the woods, creatures, and all this stuff happening on the ranch, which is what caused it to be such... I mean, I don't think there's anywhere in the U.S. you can go and not hear about Skinwalker Ranch. I think the biggest issue with Skinwalker Ranch is that you can bring it up, and a lot of people outside of, like, unless you're like from the state and you know it's a thing, you almost think it's almost a work of fiction because it seems so unreal.
Yeah. And I was doing a little bit of reading on that too. Like when that first family moved in the 90s, they overlooked it, but all the doors and all the windows had deadbolts on them, windows included. And then they also had in the interior doors, the doors leading from room to room, they also had deadbolts on them. And the family thought they were going crazy because the mom, she would go grocery shopping. She would bring her groceries back. She would unpack all the groceries, go do something in another room for 10 or 15 minutes, come back to the kitchen, and all of the groceries would be back in the grocery bags sitting on the counter. And she's like, I know I put those away. And there was another time where like she's taking a shower and she had her towel and she hung it up and she took a shower. She got out, her towel was gone. So she grabbed another towel, toweled up, and about 10, 15 minutes later, she's doing some stuff around the house, opens up a random closet door on the other side of the house, and there's her towel hanging up in the closet. Just weird,
like
bizarre
that.
stuff like that. Yeah. Really weird stuff going on at that ranch. So, and their dad had the dad had been digging holes for some post holes and stuff, and he had about like a 40 or 50 pound machine that was helping him dig these holes. And he decided to take a lunch break. He went on lunch, and after he got back, it was gone. The machine itself was gone, and he couldn't find it. He asked his family. His family's like, "No, we haven't touched this. We haven't done anything with this." And it was about 3 or 4 days later, he was out working, and he happened to look up in one of the trees in the forest next to his house, and it was about 60 feet up, just hanging there, hanging it out of the tree. Just really bizarre stuff.
Yeah. One of the things I remember hearing is about the land that the ranch is actually built on. From back before it was, settled by the people that are there today. That specifically in a lot of the places where you hear about this stuff, these terrible things that happen, that it was some sort of hot spot, like they were warned by natives, I believe, that lived there, that this place was some sort of, I don't know, sacred native site maybe, and that one of the things, and I believe I heard this on the Haunted Cosmos podcast, because they did a maybe like a 2 or 3 part series on Skinwalker Ranch where they just talked through it and all the crazy stuff that happened there. And one of the things that they mentioned was, again, it was this pagan site, and that when the Americans who would end up colonizing it went and built on this place, the land had never been prayed over, and that's theorized to be one of the reasons why there's so much of this paranormal or demonic activity, is that the land was never given up to God. Is that it is just teeming with these demons that had taken root through rituals and things that had taken place while the natives were still on the land.
Now, Colin, do you know, since you had lived out there, is there any indication whether or not maybe that ranch had been built on some sort of like Indian burial ground or something? Because I know they had been cursed, right? Whoever built that ranch by some Indians.
I don't know about if that's the case. I do know that, like, obviously all land out there was formerly tribal until, the government came in and said, hey, this is how much you tribes actually get. So there could be a backstory to it that I am unfamiliar with.
It's Navajo tribe, isn't it?
It's so out there, it's like a mix. It's predominantly Ute now.
Okay.
But I know the Navajo used to migrate that direction because, if I remember correctly in history, the Navajo tribe and the Ute tribe used to have a lot of conflict with one another.
Yeah. I'm not sure on that. Could be.
I could be speaking out my rear end with this one, but I think I remember from my history class that those two tribes specifically, did not like each other because they were
Okay.
two of the bigger tribes, and that was like a common, thing with migrating tribes fighting over resources.
Who would have thunk?
I'll have to do my research on that and then maybe come back do an update next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any? Colin, can you go into detail maybe about that one? I think it was a local rancher that you knew.
Oh,
not on Skinwalker Ranch.
So yes, yeah, I know which one you're talking about. So this one happened. I would have been about 8th or 9th grade, and I got to school, and my buddy, his family, they were cattle ranchers, and so their whole thing is, they raise cattle, and a lot of people who raise cattle in the Vernal in the Uenas in the summer, their families, most of them have like a couple, like 50 to 100 acres that they let their cows go up to graze for the first part of like the spring into midsummer, so that way the fields that the cows will graze in towards the end of the year are back down in town where their farm is. And they got their cattle up into the hills, and they have all over the hills and on their land, they have cameras that every 5-10 minutes they take like 10 rapid fire photos just to get like a picture of what's going on in the area. And most of the time all they'll see is like nothing, like just the trees, or maybe like there'll be a cow that sits there for the 10 frames and you'll see like the tail move off the 10 photos, like frame by frame of the tail moving, or maybe it'll lift its head, and that's about it. Well, one day this friend of mine, I get to school and he's like, dude, you have to see this photo. And I was like, okay, what is it? Me, 13 or 14, I'm thinking it's going to be either something wildly inappropriate or super freaking funny. And he was like, my uncle caught this on our cameras this weekend as he was going through our files to make sure everything was going fine up on our land, up on the hill where we keep our cattle. And he shows me like 3 frames, and it's just a cow in like the background and like a bunch of trees. And you see the cow move away, and then it's just the trees. And then the next frame, you see this slightly blurred humanoid like figure running on what appears to be like running all fours, but like it's a human shape, and it's ghostly pale. And then the next frame is gone. And as I said, these cameras take instantly rapid fire. And so whatever it was, to only be in one frame with back-to-back photo taking rapid fire, was moving at a supernatural rate of speed. And he was really freaked out by it. And I was like, it was one of those creepy photos where, like, you see it, and like even if you like look up like creepypasta photos, you see them, and you get like that creepy feeling. That was a photo that definitely gave me a creepy feeling, and I thought he was making it up. So like, I got home and I Googled, skinwalkers, Wendigos, and went to images, and I was like, homeboy's gonna go through like, at max 10 pages of Google for this photo. And I'm not even kidding. I searched like over 100 pages of images, and I could not find the copy of this photo to save my life. So either he is really good at photo editing, or they caught a picture of something, and
Dang.
I don't know what it was.
Is there any way for
Also-
you to get access to this photo?
He moved away in our freshman year, so like a year or two later he moved away. If I had the foresight, I should have asked for a copy of the photo, but again, this was back when like I think this was like the iPhone 2 or 3 was out.
Mm.
And I was unfortunately a very broke boy growing up. So I had the flip phone. I can't really get any photos shared with me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But to this day, it is the definitely the creepiest photo I think I've seen of whatever it was. I don't know if it was. It almost seemed because like the description matches so many of like Wendigo crawlers, if you know what crawlers are, which are kind of a controversial one, crawlers, because they've emerged in recent times, more recently than other cryptids.
Dang.
Anyway,
Yeah, so we might have to save Wendigos for another time. But I know, Colin, you were sharing with me a story that you had heard like 2 days ago. You were listening to because I was picking up some packages and you called me and you were like, "Bro,
there's no way." Yeah.
So let's tell this story and we can kind of end here for the night. And
so yeah, there was no way. Okay, so to get in the mood for the podcast, I've been listening to like creepypastas all day at work, and the story goes as follows. So this guy buys a house and in this neighborhood, and he becomes friends with his neighbor's family, and it really works out well because they both have kids. They're like, within 5 years of each other, and their kids get along, and both the couples get along really well. So they do a lot of stuff together. And one day the dad of the other family comes over. He's like, "Hey, let's go camping this weekend." And he's like, "Yeah, sure. Where do you want to go?" And he's like, "Well, I'll ask my wife says she has a campground that would be great for us." And it turns out the wife, he then adds description that the wife is like partially a member of the Navajo tribe, and she gets them access to a campground on the Navajo reservation. And they camp out there, and the husband, the main character, the protag, if you will, of the story, goes for a walk to gather firewood. And on this walk, he runs into the best thing he described, like a humanoid with like a horse head, but the limbs were like disjointed, and the head was like tilted in like a way where it almost looked like the neck was broke. And it freaked him out, and he goes running back to the camp, and he starts talking to his friend couple about it. And they're like, "Hey, yeah, you should just not think about it or bring it up or talk about it for the rest of this trip." And they go to sleep, and they wake up in the campground, and his buddy's knocking on his tent. He's like, "Hey, we need to go." And they're supposed to camp the whole weekend, so I'm guessing this is like a Saturday. They wake up, he's like, "We need to leave, we're not welcome here anymore." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And then he gets out of the tent, and the campground is just littered with small animal remains everywhere. Everywhere. And he starts freaking out, like, what the heck's going on? And the buddy's like, "Yeah, my wife got word that we're not allowed on the tribal land, and we're probably banned from coming back here." And so they pack up and leave, and they get back to their houses, and they start to unpack. And the buddy of the family is like, "Hey, let's go spend the rest of our weekend in town." He felt bad about the camping thing. He's like, "Let's go have a nice rest of our weekend in town." So they go to town because they live in a small town. So I'm guessing they go to a bigger town, and they get a hotel, and they have a good rest of their weekend. And that was supposed to be the end of it. Well, they get home, and the first thing they notice is our protag's house door is completely fucking blown off its hinges, just gone, like pushed, like scattered, gone. And obviously they're freaking out, and he grabs one of their rifles that he took while they went camping, you know, because most people take rifles for self-defense when camping or some sort of firearm. And he goes to scout the house while his buddy sits with his family and everything. And he gets in the house and it's just ransacked, absolutely destroyed. And he's scouting the house and he goes into his room and his heart just sinks because his room is littered with small animal, like bones, organs, everything just littered, covered in it. And in the center of the room is like a circle of bones with a candle lit in the center. And at this point, he's starting to freak out. And all of a sudden, he just hears screaming from outside. And he runs out and he's like, "What's happening? What's happening?" And everyone's like, they took their friend's daughter. Like, their friend's daughter's been kidnapped. And he's like, "What happened? What?" And apparently some large creature, as she was walking around like their house, like their yard, like swooped in and grabbed the daughter and ran off into the woods. And instantly both the husbands went chasing after the daughter. And after like 15 minutes of running after what they assume is the trail, they find the daughter standing in the woods, completely still, just staring off into the distance. And instantly our protag is like, something's off, something's wrong with this little girl, what is going on? And they get up to her and his buddy is like, "Oh, thank goodness you're all right." And he's looking at the girl and he notices that her eyes, which are normally blue, are now just like a hazy white, like a milky white. And they take the little girl and they go back to their family, and he takes his buddy to the side and he's like, "Look, you're not going to want to hear this, but you need to get her checked out because I don't think that's your daughter." And naturally, the guy says to our protag, "What? You're crazy. There's no way that's not my daughter. We should just be glad. I'll get her checked out in the morning." Well, 2 or 3 days go by, and he hasn't heard from his buddy, and this is really abnormal. You know, they're neighbors. They get along really well. They normally talk, if not every day, every other day. And he's about to call the police to file a missing person report, and his buddy knocks on his door and he's like, "Hey, it's been a while, you should come over tonight and our family will get together and have a good time." And he's like, "Sure thing." And he's like, "I'll see you in a bit." And he shuts the door and and instantly calls the police because his buddy's eyes, instead of being normal, were the milky white, matching like whatever happened to the daughter. And the police come up, and instantly after like 10 minutes, like 4 more cop cars show up, a fire truck and all this, and a manhunt started to find this family, and they can't find them, and they're just gone, vanished. And that's the story. It was crazy.
That's whack.
It was so crazy. I was like, this is clearly fake.
Yeah.
Idiot.
Yeah.
Because first
I was
of
going to
all,
say, if it's, no, go ahead.
who does not notice that their own daughter's eye color suddenly changed?
Right? Like, call it, you and I were talking about this, like, if one of our daughters, like, I love my daughter to death, but if I notice that on my daughter, I'd be like, well, my daughter's gone. That sucks. Like, I'm going to have to, say my goodbyes, and like, ain't no way. Like,
Take a vacation to the Bahamas.
Third off, this guy's door was blown off the hinges. Who doesn't call the cops? Who searches the house on their own?
Right.
No. Heck no.
I would be guilty of that.
Oh, you're crazy. No way.
You're wild, man. I'd be calling the cops so fast.
You are.
This man is the stereotypical white person in the horror movies.
Well,
Yeah,
see,
this
the
is
thing
the
is,
guy
I'd be
who
grabbing the
dies
biggest
first.
thing closest to me and going in like
Yeah.
swinging.
Yeah, you are definitely the guy who dies first in the horror film.
100%.
Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the commercial, but it's making fun of horror films because it was like a car insurance commercial, and the group runs this car and like, where do we hide? Here, and like one of the
In the room
protagonists,
full
like,
of
why don't
chainsaws.
yeah, and then
Yes,
one of
that's
the
one of
protag
my favorites.
yeah is like, why don't we just get in the parked car? and
It's a
drive
running car.
away?"
It's
literally
Like,
running.
a running car.
Yeah, they're like, dude, and I
And-
love that. He's like, why don't we hide here? Why don't we hide here? And then she's like, why can't we just get in the running car? And they're all like, are you nuts? Let's go hide behind the chainsaws. Like,
Yeah,
Right.
you are the chainsaw hider, my friend.
Right.
Well, I just want it to be known that my grandma thought that there was like somebody like breaking into her house like nightly because just certain stuff would just come up missing. So she asked me to come and just kind of check it out real quick. So the first thing I did was not that one. I walked down to her basement with my baselit lightsaber just so I could beat the ever living hell out of whoever it was and not risk breaking my blades.
I love it.
Of course.
It's hilarious.
Oh, speaking actual horror, this is a real thing that happened. Like, this is like a police report filed. A lady was living in her house and things would constantly disappear, like small items, food. It turns out someone was living in her attic and sneaking out at night and stealing food and
Dude, I
small
saw
objects
this.
they needed.
Yeah, I've
There's
seen
a
stories
video
like
of
that,
it because she ended up someone and she did, or they ended up, after she filed a report on it, like they put a camera out, and that's how they found this person out. They would come down from the attic, like there was like a cutout in the roof or whatever, and they would come down from the attic and like they would just be sitting in the kitchen rummaging through stuff, like. And there was a couple times where like I saw that video, the lady of the house gets up in the middle of the night to go get something to drink, and you see this person just all of a sudden hide around the corner, and the owner's like getting a drink, doing whatever. Unsuspectingly, like 5 feet away around the corner is this random person that's been living in their attic the entire time. Yeah.
This is making me sick. I don't like this.
Have you
That
heard
reminds
the
me of
story?
another story. No,
Oh.
you go ahead.
Is it the one about the girl who her and her boyfriend were living in this apartment, and her boyfriend was on his way home and she was going to take a shower, and she was talking to him, and this is also another true story. It actually happened.
Yeah.
And she gets on her bed and she's talking to her boyfriend, and she's gathering up her clothes that are from laundry that's sitting on her bed, and she looks down while she's gathering everything, and she notices in her mirror that's against the wall that she's looking down at that there is someone underneath her bed. Like a person is under her bed.
Yeah.
Bro.
And she tries to like, obviously she's on the phone with her boyfriend and she's trying not to sound alarmed, and she's like, all right, honey, well, I'm gonna go take a shower. And she goes into her restroom, her restroom, which luckily has the fire escape at this apartment complex, and crawls out, calls the authorities, and the authorities come up and they find this guy under the bed. And while she was in the shower, he got out from under the bed and went and grabbed a knife. Like his whole, like he was
Yikes.
literally going to kill this woman.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Or have you heard the one? This is another true story. That reminds me of a story where there were these two girls, I think, and they were living with their dad, and their mom had just recently passed away, and so they get out this like Ouija board or whatever, and they start to use it, right? And they think that they're communicating with the
Mistake number
spirit,
one.
and then they start hearing this tapping in the walls. And it's only whenever it's just them. The dad never hears it. And so these girls keep trying to communicate with the spirit. They think it's this friendly spirit. They think it's their mom, right? They keep hearing this tapping in the walls, whatever. And then, for whatever reason, I don't remember exactly what happens, but it starts to go bad, and they start thinking, "Oh no, I think this is a malevolent spirit, Dad. We're getting kind of freaked out here. Like, this is bad." And then it all comes to a head when they end up, like, the girls end up moving out of the house for a while to live with like a neighbor or something. And I think it was because they had seen on the stairs something was written on the stairs in like ketchup or something. And so then the dad calls the police. Whenever he gets his daughters over to the neighbor's house, he calls the police. And there's this dude that's been living in their walls. Like, there was this crawl space in the closet that opened up into this very, very thin area where, like, you could walk between the walls. And he was literally living in their walls, tapping on the walls whenever the daughters were there and the dad wasn't.
Oh yeah, isn't that the one where like they also like besides the ketchup they caught like a thing of his eye in like the air vent?
Yeah.
And played it off like they didn't see it, like in like
yes, and I think that was
like, yeah,
the
they were,
air
like,
vent in the
recording
closet,
each other.
right?
Yeah. They were recording each other, and they caught it in the background of like the video they were recording of each other.
Yeah.
They just see the eye in the video of the dude who's living in their walls.
Right?
Bro.
Oh, so terrifying. And like, didn't the guy like have something to say afterwards? I don't remember what it was.
He
but I
said
thought
he was.
like,
I'm pretty sure he said he was gonna rape those girls and like kill them.
right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like he planned to in the next couple days because he was learning the family schedule. He was gonna break out of the walls and rape and kill the girls.
right. Oh,
Dude.
terrifying.
I'm gonna go
Terrifying.
knocking on my, walls as I'm
Right.
walking upstairs.
Yeah, if you have hollow walls, like be
Oh
be
yeah,
alive.
no, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that
crazy.
reminds me again of a Junji Ito story, which is a Japanese manga artist. Yeah, it's this short story of this family, and this girl keeps saying that she keeps seeing people staring at her or whatever. So, and then it continues on. It's a very short story, but there are these people who are peeping through her walls, and there are people poking holes in like the ceiling and in the walls, and she ends up breaking the finger of one and then stabbing the eye of the other. And then that day she goes to breakfast, and her father has an eye patch and her brother has a finger splint.
I've seen that one.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Like, stuff like that is just,
Oh, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
guys,
that one's not real, but the others are, like, cheapers.
We've broken our record here. Last week we were at 2:15. We are at 2:33 right now, or 2:32. But I did want to end this just asking you guys. By the time we meet next time, it's going to be Christmas is going to be over, and so I just wanted to see real quick before we end the stream. What do you guys got planned for Christmas? Got any big plans? And we can wish our audience a very Merry Christmas and keep the change, you filthy animal, and we can get out of here.
All right. I actually have an announcement in regards to the holiday thing.
Okay.
I'm definitely going to have the Nerds Galore logo finished by then. I have the last few concepts for things pretty solidified in my head, and I just have to get them down on the digital.
Heck
and
yeah.
I have 3 merch designs that should be done by the end of Christmas week for you, Gazer.
Sweet. Heck yeah.
So,
I'm looking forward to it. This is gonna be sweet.
I'll have concepts done by Monday, and I should have the final product in by the week after that.
Sweet. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Do anything big for
Lots of
Christmas,
stuff's gonna be
Halfway, or are you
rolling in.
staying in town? I'm assuming.
Staying in town. Family's coming here.
Sweet. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Star Wars nerd?
I'm working and watching Star Wars.
Heck yeah. Mr. Maury Mobs?
Yeah, just getting together with family. Mom, dad, brother, and his wife and kids. So be pretty
Okay.
small, but I like that. I don't got anything too big planned.
How about you, Mr. Colin?
I will be doing the annual family gathering on Christmas Day. Should be nice.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, I celebrate my 30th birthday tomorrow. So, yeah.
Old man.
Yes.
Especially 2 feet in the grave, no longer just one. Oh no.
I know. This is horrible.
Now he's up to his knee.
Yeah.
Oh man. Outpost Treasure Chest says, happy holidays, y'all. I stuck with y'all the whole way. Such an awesome time. Thank you, Outpost Treasure Chest. I really appreciate it. We really enjoy doing these. We will be back again for more cryptid stuff, more conspiracy theory stuff, more creepy stuff. And when we do, you can definitely find Mr. Colin will be back for those. So
Enjoy the creepy.
anyone else have anything they want to add right before we take off for the evening?
Happy holidays, y'all. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas. Keep the change, you filthy animals. And may the force be with you always.
Always.
All right, guys.